Privileged to be here. Thank you for inviting me. As mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about employee experience on customer success. I'll show no demos, none of that. I'll show some facts and figures, some of the research that we've pulled together, and some of the thoughts. Towards the end, I'll talk about some of the thoughts and how we incorporate some of the ideas that you've been hearing about today into what we build and what we roll out there and what we recommend. First, a little bit of introduction. I am not your typical employee experience researcher, or I'm not your typical customer experience researcher. I actually started in operations. I was all about the numbers. It was always give me the numbers, don't give me feelings, because I didn't have time for them in terms of improving supply chain processes, sales forecasting, things like that. I actually, believe it or not, joined the customer experience field to help a friend improve a process and the efficiency in the work that they were doing. They were having some severe troubles, really bringing I'll call it client success to the forefront with some of the work that they were doing. So it sort of brought me in on that focus of client and customer success within our organization, and I've been honored to work across CX, EX, or I should say these out, customer experience, employee experience, user experience, product experience, and even what we call vehicle quality experience, which is a pretty niche field in that area. So I thought I'd start sort of talking about, level setting and a couple of definitions, so that, when I'm talking about it, it's pretty clear where I'm leaning towards. The first, of course, is customer success. It's, anticipating customer challenges and questions proactively and providing solutions or answers. I work in a field that just completely requires it. We are constantly being pushed into situations where if we are reacting instead of being proactive, you end up down a rabbit hole. However, customer success is not intuitive. It requires it requires employees that are thinking about the customer. And I can't emphasize it enough. They have to be thinking about the customer, and it's critical to companies because customer success, as you know, boosts happiness, retention, and revenue and loyalty. But it also has a cyclical effect on the employees. When your customers are successful, employees are also more successful. And so, just a little tidbit on a survey that looked at 515 growing companies, 237 stagnant companies, and I can share all the sources and statistics if you want to reach out to me. But it found that the stagnant companies, 49% placed customer success as very important, and that compares to 70% that said it was very important in the growing companies. So it's really about being proactive rather than reactive. The second is not a business term as we see it, but distraction. Not all distractions are bad. It's an object that directs one's attention away from something else. We all need distractions. In fact, I would even contend that even employees need distractions. So the idea that a distraction is always bad is false, but we have distractions that we wish we could go back to right now, such as theater, concerts, sporting events. Some of us are missing those kinds of things right now. But distractions can also be a very, very negative impact on an employee's well-being. And whenever distractions are in the workplace, it really becomes catastrophic towards the goal of really being putting customers on the forefront and the customer success challenges that we place on ourselves. So why am I talking about distractions? It really leads to time not focused on the customer. It's not being spent proactive. Distractions by the way, customers can sometimes even be the distraction. That I mentioned the rabbit hole before. They get on a topic that really doesn't help them succeed, and so you end up going down that rabbit hole with them and not focusing on the things that you need to be doing to be proactive. Time not focused on the goal, you start getting the company mission at stake. And when the company mission is at stake, and you'll see in some of the outcomes that I have from the studies, the company mission is really critical to engaging employees. And then distractions take time away from the employees as well, and that's very critical in this day and age. As we've learned, as we've started to work, certainly in the professional services side, these distractions can lead to discontent, and it's important to avoid this sort of spiraling cycle that has, it's proven analytically and can be demonstrated in so many ways in terms of the unhappiness that exists, that unhappy employees begets unhappy customers, which begets unhappier employees. And I mean, back in 2005, my colleague and I actually published an article about this, about you can actually analytically see the connection. We were looking at a retail chain in this case, where the stores that had that discontent, they didn't believe in the mission, their performance from a profitability standpoint analytically was different than those groups of stores that that believed in the mission, that had the good leadership. So what are these distractions? And it's interesting, what really becomes, what are the top reasons that employees are unproductive? So looking across 10 studies, and unfortunately, these are all pre-pandemic, because a lot of the studies that we're fielding now are, they're longer term studies. So you're getting them out of field, and only one of these was post-pandemic. But, some of the key reasons that our employees are unproductive, and I'm just going to say that 4 of the 5 really are what I call distractions. These are things that shouldn't be in the workplace creating a problem. And the 5th one, what we call leadership qualities, is it certainly begets distractions. The symptoms of leadership quality are distractions, but it is something that the employee can't really step around a leadership quality. But these other things, the employees and the employers are responsible for, both mutually, for making it happen. Obviously, the biggest distraction becomes support for well-being, and it's really shown itself in this day and age. And I'll talk about that with a little more detail. But this is, well-being is more than just psychological, it's physical. It spans almost, all the reasons on this list, which is why it placed it so high. In fact, in the 10 studies, 9 of them cited this as the top key distraction in the workplace that's leading to non-productive time. I mentioned quality leadership. You could argue it's a distraction, but it's really, this really creates symptoms that are distractions. An unskilled manager might micromanage, which in turn leads to other items on this list, such as the next one, which is out of control meetings and communications, and email, instant messaging, and Zoom. I mean, in this era, I was fortunate enough, we were talking briefly before, that I was on vacation last week. I came back, and literally my Monday calendar started at about 3:30 in the morning with my first Zoom call, which then terminated. My last Zoom call ended at 5 o'clock that evening. Every minute of my workday was in Zoom. Then add to that I had a week worth of emails to catch up on, and another 200 plus that showed up during the day. So are there distractions? Yes. The communications have now become what I would call out of control, especially in this era. The constantly hitting in multiple directions. We're constantly expecting 1-second turnaround times. I've sent you an email. How come you haven't responded? Well, I actually got up and had lunch. Sometimes needs to be the response, but now when we add that with the people working from home and the distractions there, I mean, so many of us have not had the experience that I've had. I've actually been a remote worker for 25 years. So I'm used to apologizing for the dog barking, or the kids crying when they were younger, and the other things that could happen. Sometimes the adorable little distraction of a young child walking in the room and interrupting a Zoom call or a video call. Sometimes it's cute, but it's also a distraction. But the other thing with all of this is an HBR article found that we're now actually working 3 hours more per day. That's not per week, per day. Since we've been working at home and taking on all of the other things as well. We're taking on homeschooling in some cases, significant others that are working from home, and even simple things that like meal prep that used to be, if you were preparing a meal, you were away from your desk for a little while. And so things like that it's no longer the case where that's your own personal time. I always used to use the example that prior to me moving to Hawaii when my kids were younger, I started my day pretty early on a typical basis, 4 a.m. or so. But at 3 p.m. I stopped. My calendar was blocked. I knew that I had to stop. I knew I had to pick up the kids from school, and that was my personal time. And I knew that 3 p.m. ended my workday. But if I did anything beyond that, it was, that was by my choice. So those things really become out of control and become distracting in more ways than one. I think the other part, the next one that I'll jump on a little bit, is the mission is not engaging. And when someone doesn't feel connected to their jobs, they find other ways to be engaged. And I'll give you a hint. When you see the people in the middle of the workday scrolling Facebook, chances are they're not engaged in the mission. They're really feeling out of touch. And sometimes that's temporary, but it also can become a long-term permanent feeling. And that's something that you have to, that mission can't be the distraction. It has to be the reason for being there. And then I think all of us at times feel the lack of recognition. It really can tie into well-being, but it does become a distraction. It's a separate distraction. That's not easily overcome. Some of the other the concepts that came up beyond that top list there, workplace flexibility, which we're learning and we're adapting to that. And I think that will be a permanent positive coming out of this. Physical space distractions, poor performance appraisal process, and then sort of a reference to the out of control communications. Certainly multitasking has become an issue without a doubt. So this is even more important in these times. Things are looking up. People are returning to offices. Well, we're not in the clear. No doubt about that. But people are not taking vacations. They're not getting the rest like they used to in the past. They're not. There's still a lot of work and home multitasking. So we looked at some recent QuestionPRO polls run by our workforce employee experience team, and it shows there's still many distractions. Financial stress affects everything, and it's probably one of those biggest distractions that are out there. And it is not the employer's responsibility necessarily to overcome all the financial stress, but there are actions that can be taken that an employer can do. And I know firms that are actively, they're part of their role is to basically help your employees manage their finances so that it doesn't become a distraction and help ease that burden. But it is a distraction that we have to really worry about. 3/4 of the people in the US are distracted by their finances. And that carries over into the workplace where they get most of their finance. Similarly, when we talk about professional advice, and I mentioned those firms that become sort of a they help the employees with their financial advice and relationships, but the professional advice is not coming from within the workplace, and it really sort of corresponds to this third poll. Does your workplace have a mentoring program? And I was actually surprised that the number was 45%. I thought that was a little higher than I was expecting to come in, but that still means more than half don't have a program. And I'll tell you this, if you're not sure if your company has a mentoring program, you don't have a mentoring program. Even if one's in place, by the employee's perception, that means they're not participating in it. I think probably what is happening with this 45%, it's probably a split between those that have it and participate and those that have it and don't participate. But that also means that people are turning outside the company for professional advice, personal advancement advice, and they're mentoring. And when you're turning outside the company, and fewer than half of your employees can take advantage of some sort of workplace mentoring, then it becomes, are you in, people start to question, are you in the right career? Are you in the right place? Are you, every time if I have to describe what I have to do for my job before I can describe what my problem is in the job, it really becomes a negative, and it becomes a bigger distraction, and it actually puts people into that cycle of despair. And when that happens, you get the worst of the worst, the I quit. So when we start talking about what that revolving door looks like and customer success, it's really important to look at certain things, like increased happiness leads to increased performance. Happy employees are 20% more productive at work. A positive employee experience breeds happy employees, which not only builds stronger work culture, it impacts business performance. You can't afford disengaged employees. This is the time of year where disengagement sometimes pops up in alternate ways, but disengaged employees cost U.S. employers between $450 billion and $550 billion per year. Of just lost productivity. Sometimes those disengagements can be fun. I'm admittedly one of those that gets all into the NCAA brackets at this time of year, and my enthusiasm for it sometimes takes and distracts me. So I can even admit, as a manager, it happens. But that kind of temporary disengagement is very different from a completely disengaged employee that has lost faith in the mission. So. Third point I'll make, if you think your work culture is just fine, think again. 64% of employees across the country feel they do not have a strong work culture. And if you're in a professional services firm, the example I would give is if a CEO or if a supervisor one level up came and asked an employee, just a random employee, and said, hey, let's go out and have a drink. What would the employee think? Would they fear they're getting fired? Would they be expecting more being piled on them, more work piled on them? Or the reverse, would they feel like, hey, this is a good thing, I'm being recognized for my efforts? If it's the former, your work culture is not fine. Another one, financial incentives are not enough to foster satisfied employees. Support, balance, and clear expectations are critical. Unhappiness leads to absence. Unhappy employees take 15 more absence days each year than the average worker, and it decreases productivity. It affects company finances, and it affects the morale of those around them as well. And it's again, that cycle of pushing things down and impacts what your customers can achieve and the success they can have if you don't have your primary, for example, account manager working on it. So flip side, engaged employees increase profit. Highly engaged, that study I mentioned before, 147% higher earnings per share versus those that have disengaged employees. Your physical office environment can create a more effective workforce. This goes beyond now just, are you an open office or a cubicle office? And I think that debate is settled, that there's no right answer, I'll say, but there are also things that apply to some companies that don't apply to others. I know too many firms, technology firms in Utah, when we worked closely with some of them, they always said, oh, Google does it this way, should so we should do it here. And, Google does it should never apply to your firm. It should be, what works for your firm. And then your employees' minds work significantly better when they're happy. I mean, really, according to Sean Archer, who's the author of The Happiness Advantage, says that, only 25% of job performance is based on IQ. 75% is what your brain believes matters and how it connects to other people and how you manage that stress. So tying that all back in, you get to the point where customers succeed only when the employees are empowered to succeed. And I'm not here to pitch any one thing, but giving them the ability, and I know we've been talking about video quite a bit. We use it here at QuestionPRO. We push out video answers to our customers every time we get a request of how does this work. I mean, we have the old school help support center where you type in your question and comes up with a bunch of block answers. But now when they type in a question, we're notified of it. We're able to take a video of how you approach it, because everything that we're doing is steps rather than, hey, it's not as easy as just providing a definition on something. So being able to bring that video in place has been really helpful. It's more engaging for the employees. They're able to answer not only that customer's question, but also answer future customers' questions, and takes them away from the mundane and the routine. Distracted employees rarely bring their A game. And if you don't have the A game, and certainly in my field, if you don't have your A game with a customer, they pick it out right away and they know right away. And then the other thing I'll say is, too often firms look at customer success and employee experience in isolation. They are not bringing them together. They're not taking the time with the employee to have the face-to-face meeting, the call, the mentoring. I mean, I don't know how many times, here, other firms, how many times the feedback is just sent via an email rather than stop by and say, hey, this is a place you could have done it better. And they feel like it's being documented because it's being sent via email. And even the praise feels like it lacks the emotion. Understand the physical and psychological environment. More engagement, fewer tasks. And this really goes along the lines of what all of our wonderful speakers have been talking about. When you're able to take some of the things that feel like tasks and turn them into really unique opportunities to help the client succeed. Our team, I saw a question over there before. Our teams actually love doing the voiceover on the videos for their customers, because that lives lives temporarily forever in our help center. And they're able to then, say, look, I've done that. I'm on a website. I'm on a video as the help. I help the customer put together the logic sequence in a survey. So it actually very engaging for them, things like that. So try to take things away from task driven and make it more goal driven. And so that is how you're really going to engage the employees in a great, better way. Like I said, I'm not here to sell you on a specific approach, service, or software. Just tell you that there is an intertwined link between all these employee experience, customer success, the customer experience, and ultimately the profitability of the company. So get rid of the mundane, provide the tools, and improve the customer success will happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. It's so insightful, and informative as well. We got many information related to employee experience. So thanks for your time. You actually didn't share your contact information. If you want, you can also edit. For the ones that would like to add you, maybe you can share your LinkedIn, or you can share your email address. So if the ones that, yep.
I will put that in the chat.
Yeah, cool. So I'm checking for the questions. Yep. So right now we don't have any questions related to employee experience. Do you have anything to add, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, when you think about employee experience, as I mentioned, it's strange because we wrote an article about it. It's now 16 years ago, and it's still, no one solved it, shall I say? No one solved how do you connect employee experience to customer experience, customer success, and profitability. We did solve it a long time ago, but it's going to be unique in each situation. And I mean, that's the one thing I can just say over and over again. It's unique. Don't say, well, Google does it this way and say that's going to make it work here. So
yeah. Thank you for that again, Ken.
Thank you.
I'm going to invite Kaira right now, and we will keep in touch, and I will share the recording of the video with you as well after our event. So thank you for your time again.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.